Optimize tech transfer through digital systems integration. It's a mouthful, right? That does work. Cool. All right, so first we'll do a real quick introduction, which actually Luke's done that, so we won't spend much time there. I will talk a little bit about some of the challenges with tech transfer. Andy's going to spend some time talking about a specific use case with folks that have an existing MES, and then I'll come back and talk about benefits and summarize a little bit. We'll skip that. So just a little bit about ZAETHER. Again, this is a slide of kind of what we do. We won't get into any details here. If you want to talk about that, come up and talk to me or Derek or some of these others later. We won't get into that stuff. One thing I would want to touch on this one real quick. So we're a consulting company. We're not about, we're not a software company. We're not building anything from that perspective, but we're partnering with folks like QbDVision. So the green box kind of represents that. So just kind of keep that in mind. The other thing I would point out is change management. I know we've heard a little bit about that today, but that's a really important part, the organizational change management it takes to actually implement the systems and get the adoption that's needed. So we're really focused on that. Okay, we'll talk a little bit about tech transfer. So who has lived through the pain of a tech transfer? There we go. Who thought it was antiquated and painful? I mean, seriously. Could it get any worse? All right, all those pile of documents and all the stuff we had to go through, all the teams all meeting together, right, trying to deal with all the pains all the way through the process. Just a lot of challenge there. And so what we want to do today is just kind of narrow in a little bit, not look at the entire aspect of tech transfer, but focus on kind of that PD to manufacturing. But keep in mind that you've got all the various parameters, CPPs, CQAs, all those things you got to deal with. All that has to be carried through the entire process. So the complexity, right? So again, Word documents, Excel, PowerPoint, PDFs, ton of them, right? They're stacked up all around to get through this whole process. So starting at PD and the lab, pilot plant, going on through to get, again, clinical manufacturing, you got to scale up there, right? So that's one scale up opportunity. Then you got to get to commercial manufacturing. So, now we got to make more of it. So we got to scale up again, complexity that goes along with that. All the same kind of data, but it progresses and just keeps growing and building over time. Then, we can't make enough of this product at this plant. Now we got to go add it to another. So we got another tech transfer going to another plant. Huge opportunity for, quite frankly, human error and deviations, right? How many times do we have those during the tech transfer process? Really painful. I know a lot of folks, you hear about herding cats, right? I look at this, it's not herding cats. It's herding cats and dogs and squirrels. Oh my. It's horrible. So we're going to talk a little bit about solution we've got. We've worked with QbDVision probably for the last year on this to get to where we are right now. And they've just made an announcement yesterday about that whole thing with the new integration with the new version. So it's very exciting, and Andy's going to talk a little bit about that.
Thank you, Tim. I was going to say spoiler alert, because I was going to cover that. So what I want to show in these slides is talking about one of the use cases that we've developed with one of our customers that we worked with on an MES platform. Not going to say which one, but people who've seen it before probably will know. So what we have here is one of the integration pieces that we've built out, and what we evaluated first is their manual tech transfer process that currently exists. So starting from the top, we're working with the initial data capture, right? Capturing that tech transfer data, and this is specifically an example of exactly how bill of parameter data capture would work. In this case, we have to get that data, got to create the documents, either it's written by an operator in Word or somehow captured in Excel or however it's written. Then that needs to be evaluated and approved by either PD or MSAT, whatever teams that are required to consolidate and make sure that information is contextualized properly. Then from there, it's a team collaboration effort to grab that raw data that's captured and then moving it into that tech transfer data, right? Moving it into a structured, formatted style that can be passed on not only to your MES system, but other possible systems that are going to be using that information. And again, that process is repeated where you need to create those, review it, and then also validate those documents. This all takes a lot of time to build out and a lot of people to get that done. And now you're expanding from not just PD, but you're also looking at manufacturing, you're looking at operations. All of these different teams need to come together and collaborate and make sure that data is properly created. Then finally, moves down to that MES system, right? You want to execute that batch. And moving from there, you have to get that information from the tech transfer that you created earlier, either in Excel or Word, and push it into the system. Some MES systems have an import tool that's available to get that information in, but some others, you might not have that, right? And some of that information might need to be painstakingly written one by one into it, and that takes hours, weeks, who knows how long it takes. And then, like Tim said, a lot of human error is involved in that as well, right? And that's why you need a second person to validate and verify that information is following the exact same data that you had originally recorded by the operators. Again, all of that needs to be improved and validated. Now, the reason why I'm talking about that is that this is just one of the documents you need to go through. That's just a BOP. But you gotta consider other documents like your SOP, your CQAs, your CPPs. And all of those follow a similar process of data capture methodology. Starting from the manual capture, right? You need to get that information from the operators, either written on a clipboard or some simple Word doc, and then move it into more of a formatted style, which is mapped in either Word, Excel, it could be a database, ELN, whatever is required to get that information in. And then finally, moving that data into a MES system, either manually or importing, but again, all of that information needs to be verified, validated, and ensure that it's properly existing in the system. So all of this in total, overall, takes a lot of time, right? It's not a simple process. Not everybody has the time, and it takes a lot of effort to make all of this happen. So what we've implemented and designed is an integration that allows you to streamline that data capture from your existing manual data that's basically recorded by the operators and streamlining it to the final MES system. This avoids all of those different steps that we mentioned earlier, so that it would basically allow you to do more or less a one-click tech transfer, more or less. This integration allows more of a better scalability of your data and your design, so you can account for basically your current data as well as any future implementations or integrations that you're adding to it. It helps standardize that recipe structure to basically allow for one standard format for your recipe additions. And what recently has been implemented by QbD with that ISA 95 format is basically allowing you that structure so that we can push it into your MES systems without requiring to put much more work into that design. And also, we've actually worked with QbDVision as well, is providing that bidirectional communication between your MES and QbDVision. So not only can you do real-time requests to the QbDVision system, but that real-time data will come out of QbDVision as well with the integration. So real quick, just showing how that flow of integration works. So we initially have an ERP system that does a process request, and that sends it to the MES order management system, which from there, the order management system will send a process request to QbDVision. And then what QbDVision will do is send back a live parameter update that will push the information back to the MES order management system, which then will push it down to some other details such as the workflow execution, some REST resource editors, and document repositories. And all of that information is captured back into the MES system to make sure that you can execute your batches or your processes. Now, this is one of the examples that we've done integrations for an MES system, but this is very agnostic in the design, and most of the details do still fall in line of what other designs could be implemented for these systems. So in summary, going back to our original slide, a lot of this integration has removed those steps that are initially required. So we eliminated a lot of these pieces that are requiring verification or standardization of that data. So starting from, while we still need that manual tech transfer data to be captured, a lot of these different steps of validating and verifying that data is no longer required, right? Because of QbDVision's version control, as well as that one center for data consolidation. So with all that being said, I want to pass it back to Tim to talk about the benefits of this.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay, so is that exciting stuff or what? Would that make tech transfer a little better? Yeah. Tell you what, if that doesn't fire you up, your wood is wet. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So, I was fortunate enough to spend quite a few years with Bristol Myers Squibb. And during that time, I worked through a few tech transfers, and specifically I was at that time leading, like probably a dozen years, leading some MES implementations across multiple sites. And most of those were basically part of a big tech transfer, right? So we had both a brownfield and a greenfield. And somebody said something earlier about greenfield being easy. No, it's not any easier for sure. So what's that whole experience did, though, is realize how painful that is. So when we start to talk to these guys about pulling this stuff together, I just got all excited about it because I'm thinking, I would have died for this, just a few years ago. Just not too many years ago, this wouldn't have been possible. So this is just one example of how the benefit works. So kind of at the tail end of your tech transfer process, you've got to do your development, engineering, and PPQ batches. Now you've got all the data in QbDVision, your parameters, your CQAs, CPPs, all those things, right? All that's in there. And you get those approved. Once those are approved in QbDVision, then they're ready for MES. So now you've drop your order for your dev batch, and now you're off and running. During that dev batch's 40, 50 days cycle, as you find things that need to change, which happens, right? So all of a sudden these values need to change. Now somebody can go back to the process scientist back into QbDVision while the batch is running, make those changes, right? Get them approved, and kind of as the process evolves, those things can happen. So by the end of your development batch, you should be in a place where all those things, or maybe you need another day, right? Maybe you need a little bit of time to get those final things approved. But for the most part, at the end of the dev batch, now you're ready for engineering. You got those parameters approved, drop the order for your eng batch, you're off and running. Same thing with PPQ, right? It's huge opportunity. So, looking at, we eliminated a lot of those tech transfer documents. I can't say they're all gone, but for the, big chunk of those are gone now. Significantly reduced the time, because, how much time do you spend in a conference room and on the shop floor and kind of working through all the details and making sure all that stuff is aligned and getting it into the systems and verifying everything? Huge amount of time. That manual bill of parameter that he was talking about and getting that into your MES. If you have an MES, you know what I'm talking about. Also quite painful. Just again, significantly reducing that overall time. So other benefits. Now you have data. Not just data, you got information, you got knowledge. You got things that can really help you make good business decisions, insights that you never had before. When it's all on paper or all in Excel and Word, it's not in the same situation, right? So you got now all this opportunity that you didn't have before. Now you have a platform for collaboration, R&D, PD, MSAT, manufacturing, quality, all in there, working through that, getting the details in there, getting them approved, getting them ready. And then also the leverage, right? So going forward, you've got a huge amount of opportunities, not just with MES is kind of the, just the scratching the surface, if you will. So when you get those data from QBD into MES, MES can then distribute that to the control system that it probably already talks to, right? So you can get your parameters into your DCS, your OEM equipment, and then the next step is even offline testing equipment. So you got to do samples. You got pH, connectivity meter, Vicel, all those instruments are connected. Now you can download that information as well, set points, parameter values specific to that product at the right time in the process. So cool stuff. Now, so we have this framework. You've got QbDVision, you've got ISA 95, B2MML standards, all sounds cool, right? That's a great framework, but the work's not over. Now, you need to, once you get all that in place, you still need to map to all those sites. So you got multiple sites, you got potentially, within sites, you got multiple plants. Within that, you potentially have multiple MESs, depending on the company, right? Maybe one, maybe two, maybe more. Then you add CDMOs in there, and you add multiple customers. Complexity is on and on, right? So again, what you have to do is make sure you're planning. You've got this great tools in place, but you need to plan ahead. You need to get your standard taxonomy, ontology, naming conventions in place, so you can now map to all those other systems. It's a one-time thing, right? You got to map to those, and for any new tech transfer, it's actually an NPI. Of course, you're going to have to go in and make modifications and such, but it's minor in comparison. The upfront planning for this and the implementation, there's some pain involved in that, but the benefits are huge. Thank you very much. If you're interested in seeing a white paper we've written on tech transfer, you can scan this QR code and it'll take you there.